Welcome to Finding Your Scottish Ancestry. We need to begin by understanding that the Acts of Union, which occurred in 1706 and 1707 and culminated in the Treaty of Union of 1706, joined Scotland and England into a single country called the United Kingdom. Before that time, Scotland was a separate country. The things you need to watch for in Scottish records are that some of the records have no counterpart in either England or Wales. And many of the names are very common in Scotland and interchangeable, often with spelling variations. There may be clerical errors in the records, and there may also be places with the same name. When searching for Scottish records online, some of the major online resources include FamilySearch.org. FamilySearch has 18 digitized collections covering the years from 1500 to 2013. There are indexed records in the number of 40,346,438. There are 12,787,246 record images. Remember that these numbers might change as additional records are added online or to the collections. You also need to remember that many of the records for Scotland and England and the rest of the United Kingdom are still on microfilm. And so it's important to check the FamilySearch.org catalog and look for the place where your ancestors lived to find additional records. Other major online record sources include Ancestry.com. They have 481 collections for Scottish records that includes millions of records. These records include census, voters lists, vital records, military, immigration and travel records, newspapers, and many other types. There are two major websites that contain records of Scotland: FindMyPast.com, which includes records from the United Kingdom, and ScotlandsPeople.com, which specializes in Scottish records. These two websites are owned by the same company, D.C. Thomson Limited. The number of records on these websites gets complicated because the Scottish records are not segregated from all the other records in the United Kingdom, but there are millions of records on both websites. One thing about Scottish records to remember, and records within the United Kingdom, is that for births less than 100 years old, and marriages less than 75 years old, and deaths less than 50 years old, it is only possible to view the index entries over the internet. If you wish to look at the details on the certificates will have to be ordered from the government. Even though Find My Past may be free to LDS members, you still have to pay to get the copies of the records from the government. The types of records that should be searched for Scotland include civil registration records. These are government records of births, deaths, and marriages that began in 1855. It's important to focus on the date when these records began being kept. Records before that time would only be available from the church, parishes, or some other type of records. Census records are another valuable source of information. They began being kept in 1851 and were kept for every 10 years, including a list of all the people who lived in each household. Church records are the next and very most valuable source of information, particularly about the births and deaths and marriages. Baptism or christening records, marriages and death records began to be kept in the 1500s. Most of these were kept after 1538, when Henry VIII decreed that the records should be kept. Although there are a few parish registers that exist before 1500, they are very rare, and you need to search carefully to find these records. The church records include old parish registers and Catholic registers. The Catholic registers and parish registers are separately kept. You would have to determine whether or not your ancestors were members of the Church of England or were Catholics or were members of some of the other religions. In Scotland, the predominant religion was called Presbyterianism, or Presbyterians were the members of that church. Another good source of basic records are probate records. These include wills, testaments, and court actions regarding the property of a deceased ancestor. To find these kinds of records, it's very important to locate where your ancestors lived. Once you have the place where they lived, then the probate records would be associated with the court in that particular area. Other types of records that might be valuable are the valuation rolls. Land valuation began with the Scotland in the Act of 1854 and provided for uniform valuation of all landed property throughout Scotland. Assessors were appointed for each of Scotland's 35 counties and 83 royal and parliamentary boroughs. Eventually 90 boroughs were produced valuation records. The records that the assessors had to compile included a rolled listing of every house or piece of ground, along with the names and designations of the proprietor, the tenants, and the occupier, and the annual rateable value. Other types of valuable records are soldier wills. These are often found now online. Coats of arms are an interesting way to become involved in Scottish history as well as Scottish genealogy. However, if you're thinking that you're going to have a coat of arms because you connect with a Scottish family, you need to do some investigation into the requirements for actually receiving a coat of arms. An official coat of arms is not available simply through proving a lineage through genealogical research. Important thing is to keep searching. There are many other local government and parish websites on the internet for both records from the United Kingdom and for Scotland. Thanks for watching.